John Bates. As a leadership communication expert and strategic communications advisor, John Bates' highly effective approach, along with his coaching, training, and keynotes, is based in the neurobiology and evolutionary biology of how human beings communicate, lead, inspire, and influence each other. John works with forward thinking leaders and teams to help them change the world with their words. John supports many organizations like NASA, Johnson& and Johnson, Navy Special Operations, Accenture, Boston Scientific, Coca-Cola, Motorola, IBM, Air Liquide, and many, many others. He also works with many businesses and other celebrities like Dolph Lundgren, actor in Aquaman, The Expendables, Rocky IV, and anti-human trafficking activists at Castla. John is also one of the most prolific TED Talk format trainers in the world. He has spoken at the TED conference several times, and he has also coached and or spoken for over 35 specific TEDx events. John also coaches and trains for the TED Fellows program. John has also supported many, many high-level leaders in creating, honing, and delivering extremely high-leverage talks, interviews, keynotes, and other communications for their summits, engagements, and events. John has a unique ability to bring out the best and most impactful version of anyone's story. He's also highly sought after strategic messaging consultant and pitch coach. He's the official pitch and messaging coach for Johnson & Johnson's J Labs, for the Cisco Global Problem Solver Challenge, and the ION Incubator in Houston, and many others. I'm honored to interact with John in the past few months. John is very humble, extremely easy to work with, and a very generous person, a true leader who walks the talks. Please join me in welcoming John Bates to help us understand and harness the neurobiology of effective leadership, influence, and communication. Communicating with human beings is not logical, it's biological. John Bates.
Thank you, Shamala. You know, I've always been jealous and envious of the people who had the hard skills, because I was always the guy with the soft skills. And I worked in the .com arena. I got on the internet in 1987, started at my first .com in 1994. And from then on, I was always an early employee, single-digit employee, or I was a founder or a co-founder. And I raised several $100 million in Silicon Valley and beyond. But the people that I worked with who had the hard skills still called what I did fluffy. And so I would go around trying to prove that I was valuable while I secretly felt that I was just less than valuable. And it was kind of awkward. And then in 2009, I went to the TED conference for the first time. And I will never, ever forget that. It was one of the most memorable, life-changing experiences of my life. I saw person after person up on stage giving the most amazing talks I had ever heard. And to my credit a little bit, one of the first things that I realized is, wow, you know, I've been a public speaker, but I've never been doing that. So I came back from TED in 2009, super excited. I got very, very involved in the TED and TEDx community. It's all volunteer. That's all a volunteer effort. So I was volunteering for my friends who were running TEDx Santa Monica. And at one of our first ever TEDx events, we had this guy who had all the hard skills. And he had the most interesting topic of the day. He was the guy I was looking forward to seeing the very, very most. And when he got up on stage and started to speak, everybody in the room, including me, checked out because he was so nervous and awkward that we all thought we might throw up. And I remember just being so sad. I had seen that so often in my life. And I'd worked with so many people who I knew they had so much to offer and they had so much education and they wanted to make a difference, but they just couldn't quite close the gap between their mouth and someone else's ears. And so for a little while, I was sad. And then the evil part of me popped out. And I remember sitting there quietly to myself saying, ha, 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 hard skills guy is blowing it, neener, neener, neener. And as I was indulging that evil side of myself, my buddy walked over, Michael Weiss, and he leaned down and he said, dude, we got to do something to help people like this. And I remember it was one of the most liminal moments of my life. The lights went on. My brain almost exploded. I realized that if I just got over myself for 5 minutes, I could totally make a difference for that guy. If I stopped honoring the chip on my shoulder and I started honoring the people right in front of me, I could totally make a difference for that guy. And so that moment utterly changed my life. I now pinch myself almost on a daily basis as I say things to people like, yes, I train the NASA astronauts, and you heard all the other amazing clients that I get to support. And what I realized is that in that moment, if I wanted to make a difference for that guy on stage that day, I knew that I would have to base everything I did in human evolutionary biology and human neurophysiology, so I could show people not only what works when it comes to communicating with human beings, but also why it works based in science. Now, given that I'm such a soft skills guy, it took me a few years to realize why this stuff always works. I remember thinking over and over, wow, it worked again. Wow, it worked again. Well, that's why we like science, right? Because science is a way to make things dependably work. So what I want to share with you today are some of the absolute key pieces, some of the key principles that I share with the people that I work with, whether they're just doing one-on-one executive coaching with me for their leadership and their leadership presence and how they deal with things at work, all the way to people that I've coached for the TED stage, that I coach for TEDx events all the time. All of these things that I'm going to share with you today are principles based in neurobiology that you can apply to your own style. I do not want to ask you to change your style. I think that's inauthentic. And one of the key things to being successful, especially in a TED-like talk format, is authenticity. So what I want to give you today are principles that you can apply in your own style that will make you even more effective when it comes to communicating with human beings. Now, before I go much further, I want to bring something in that I've been working with people on for more than a year now, ever since the pandemic really hit, which is I would love to ask you if you would be willing to come on to video. I'm the one on the hook for the next, 30, 40 minutes, but so you don't have to come on video. But the point I'd like to make by asking you to come onto video is what a difference it makes for everybody else here to be able to see each other. And I want you to know the enormous difference it makes for me to be able to just glance down at you, see if you're nodding, see if you're smiling, see if you look bored, and feel like I'm actually with you. So one of the things that I tell my corporate leaders is wherever you are in the hierarchy, if you intend to show up as a leader, you must be on video. And never, ever underestimate the difference that it makes for the other people on that call to see you. It really, really matters. And boy, I can't wait. I hope I get to come join you in person, at some point, because this is fun, but that's way more fun. So let's jump into, now that I can see some of you, thank you so much. Give me a nod if it sounds good. Should we jump into the biology? Like it, as we said at the beginning, that's great. I love that, Barbara. I like that. If that's a yes, I like it. So, all right, let's jump into that, because as we said at the beginning, communicating with human beings is not logical. You may have noticed, you know, people burst out laughing when I say that sometimes because it's just so true. Communicating with human beings is not logical, it's biological. So let's unpack that. So the first most fundamental piece of it for me, and the thing that I think about when I'm communicating and leading and trying to inspire human beings and trying to move human beings to action, is the fact that if you take a human brain and you do a cross section of the human brain and you look at it, you'll see the brain stem. This is the really ancient, most ancient part of the brain, keeps all of our functions like breathing and our heartbeat and all the things that we don't even have to think about. It's got those things handled. And then wrapped around that is the midbrain. And together, these two pieces form what's called the paleomammalian brain. It's also called the limbic system. It's also called the emotional brain. So that's this ancient, these two pieces make this ancient thing. I call it the paleomammalian brain because that to me is the most descriptive. The other one that's very descriptive is the emotional brain. We'll come back to that. Then wrapped around that ancient brain is our new brain, the neocortex. And you all know what neo means, yeah? Neo means new. So this is the new brain, and it is wrapped around the outside of the ancient paleomammalian brain. Now, all mammals, that's why it's called the paleomammalian brain, all mammals have this brain, this structure. And this is the part of our brain that keeps us alive. And it's very, very old. And I'm going to say something kind of weird, so I'll say it twice. I'm going to say this twice because it's kind of weird, but it's very important. This ancient paleomammalian brain does not have access to language or logic or reason. It does not have access to those things, but it does have access to reality on a much deeper level than we will ever have access consciously. Okay, I said I'd say it twice because it's kind of weird. So this part does not have access to language or logic or reason, but it does have access to reality on a fundamentally deeper level than we will ever have access consciously. And here's what I mean. This part is the part of our brain that smells pheromones. We don't consciously smell pheromones, but we send signals with them and we read signals from them all day long. It also reads facial micro expressions, things we never notice consciously, but that we send and receive all day long. Same thing with a lot of the very subtle body language and body positioning, vocal inflection, all of that stuff. And it notices patterns in things before the long before the conscious brain will ever notice. The ancient paleomammalian brain notices that. So this part of the brain is very dialed into reality on a very fundamental level in a way that we'll never be conscious of consciously. So here's the thing about that. We all think that we live in our logical brain, I'm going to assert. You know, I think most people wouldn't argue with me. I think a lot of people on this call would say, well, John, you know, yes, this whole ancient brain thing, but I mean, I weigh things out logically. You know, I check the boxes, I'm going to think about the benefits and all that, and then I'll make a logical choice. Okay, well, here's the big news. Yes, you might do all that stuff, check the boxes, weigh things out, think about it very logically. But when you make that decision, when you make that choice, boom, your ancient paleomammalian brain fires first, making the decision. And then nanoseconds later, but later, your conscious neocortex fires, agreeing with or disagreeing with the decision, but not making the decision. So here's the crucial piece. That matters, but we don't think about it enough. Now, the ancient paleomammalian brain, the fact that it's perceiving that reality, but yet it doesn't have access to language or logic or reason, That means that it's perceiving all these very important things, but it can't talk to us because it doesn't have language. So how does it communicate with us? Here's how: gut feelings. When you have a gut feeling, that is coming from your ancient paleo-mammalian brain communicating something very important to you, but it doesn't have language. So it can just give you a feeling, right? Oh, it doesn't feel right. Or yeah, no, God, I have a good feeling about this, right? So if your mom didn't tell you, trust your gut. That's good information. That's really good information. If the elevator door opens and all of a sudden the hair stands up on your neck, don't get in there. Don't get in there. If that was a nice person in there, they'd want you to trust your gut. And if it's a not nice person, then you don't want to be in there, right? So trust your gut. That's good advice. But we all think we're living our lives logically, from my experience. So here's why that's so important. Here's why not taking that into account is such a big deal. Tell me if you've never, or if you ever have had this experience. Do you like the product? Oh yeah, I like the product. Do you think it's priced right? Oh yeah, we think it's priced right. Do you think it would make a difference for you to have it? Oh, certainly, yes. Do you want to sign the check and we'll start delivery? No, we're not quite ready yet. We're going to think about it a little longer, right? And I see some of you smiling and laughing and nodding. You've had that experience, yeah? I've had that experience too. And you know, I do a lot as pitch coaching, and I do a lot of executive coaching, and there are millions of dollars on the line in these conversations, and often, sometimes even more. And when people get yes, 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 no, they get very upset. Were they lying to me? Like, what's going on? What do they mean? Yes, 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 no. What are you talking? What was that about? Okay, watch. We'll never have a question about that again. You will never have a question about that again. This is exactly what's going on when you get yes, 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 no. And it's super obvious in hindsight. So here we go. Yes, 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 no. Logic, 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 emotion. We did not make the emotional connection that would allow them to give us what I call the fourth and most important yes. Yes, 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 yes. So here's what I tell people when they're pitching. Here's what I tell people when they're giving keynote speeches. Here's what I tell people whenever they're interacting with human beings. Until you have an emotional connection, all the logic in the world just bounces off. When it comes to actually motivating human beings and influencing human beings, logic is necessary, but it is not sufficient. You must make an emotional connection. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about your origin story and the amazing power of your origin story. And we're going to really dig into that tomorrow. I'm going to mention it a little bit later on before we go. I can even make available, so I've made available in Whova some documents, 2 short PDF documents. If you want to look at those before tomorrow, you can come in better prepared for this. What I'll say is your origin story is probably your best opportunity to set up and make that emotional connection right off the bat of all the opportunities that you have. Now, I'll give you one other really quickly, and I'll keep it kind of brief. Small talk has been misnamed. Small talk is not small talk. Small talk is big talk. We're just confused about it because it seems like it doesn't really matter what we talk about, but it does matter what we talk about. It doesn't matter the topic. We could talk about the weather. We could talk about kids. We could talk about whatever, dogs, whatever. The thing that matters is that we talk about it in a way that connects us and makes us feel like we're in the same tribe. So if you start thinking of small talk as big talk, and you start making sure that that small talk you engage in connects you with the person you're talking to, boom, we're cooking with gas. Good? Makes sense? Okay. Now I'm going to do, I'll be back tomorrow. And in those sessions, I'm going to be answering questions a lot more. We're going to have a lot more time. I want to just today give you these principles so that you can be mulling them over, letting your unconscious brain play with them, maybe talk about them with each other, try some of the things that I'm talking about on, see if it makes a difference. And then tomorrow we'll have a bunch of question and answer time, and we'll dig into this stuff. So I see someone say where in Huva, and I don't know if they're not there. I'll make sure that they are before the afternoon. But I know I uploaded them. I think they might be in my session. We might have to make them available something. So next piece of neurobiology. I'm going to give you 2 pieces of neurobiology and then a couple of other principles today. So the second big piece of neurobiology is spoken to in that very important saying that you've all heard before, I know. If you don't believe it, they won't, right? You've got to believe it, because if you don't believe it, they won't believe it. Now, you've all heard that, right? That's kind of like sales 101. And there's nothing new about that. But here's what we don't talk about when we talk about that enough. Why? Why is that true? Okay, why that's true is because we all have mirror neurons. We have neurons in our bodies that, and someone just won a Nobel Prize for this, for their work in this. We have mirror neurons in our bodies that fire in response to what we see other people going through. So if somebody walks in the room and they're happy, we feel happy. And if someone walks in the room and they're sad, we feel sad. I mean, I see some of you looking sad right now, you know? And if I were doing a cooking show instead of a keynote, and I had a bunch of purple carrots, the beautiful purple carrots we grew in our backyard, and I had a big old butcher knife and I was cutting up the purple carrots and telling you about all the benefits, the nutritional benefits of the anthropy. Okay, now it's pretty cute. I want to point something out. I do not have purple carrots. I do not have a big old butcher knife, but you jumped because you have mirror neurons. And they are always working. They're always on. People cannot help but respond. And here's the thing no one talks about enough. They're always mirroring you. They are always mirroring you. Now, I want you to think about this, and I want to tell you, when I really got this, especially as a speaker, but also as a leader, as a human being, this was like Jedi mind powers. Oh, these are not the droids you're looking for. These are not the droids we're looking for. Move along. Like, you take this on, I swear to you, it's Jedi mind powers. The world became malleable when I took this on. So think about it. When you raise your hand, everybody turns to look at you. They're mirroring you. When you walk in the room, everybody turns to look at you. They're mirroring you, right? When you're up on stage speaking, they're mirroring you. Now, when you're the top of the hierarchy on the org chart, they're always mirroring you. This is why some companies do so well, and some companies, no matter how hard they try, just continue to suck. It's because that kind of stuff just gets mirrored all the way down. So if you've got bad leadership, that's why leadership's so important. Everyone's always mirroring the leader. So when you take this on, it totally changes things. Now, let me make another quick example of this. And no pointing, no shouting out, okay? But think of quietly the people you know who are always grumpy. You know those people, right? Yeah, I see laughter. So, okay, think about them. They walk in the room and immediately everybody's grumpy. And then they grump around for a while and everybody's grumpy and grump. The minute they leave, we're all fine again. We're all fine. But wherever they go, everybody's grumpy. So they think everybody's grumpy. No, we're just grumpy when they're around because we're mirroring them. So think about it from the point of view of being a speaker. Have you ever had a bad audience? I know I have. I'm going to be honest about it. I have had bad audiences. Well, ever since I took this on, I have never, ever, ever had a bad audience. And it's been about 20 years. I took this on about 20. I know when I was 5, I took it on when I was 5. Not true. But when I took this on, since then, I have never had a bad audience, because if it looks like it's turning into a bad audience, I don't blame them anymore, because I know what's really happening. I need to give them something even better to mirror so that I can have an awesome audience. And that's how it always goes now. So yes, pay attention to the audience. Yes, pay attention to the people around you, but never, ever let them pull you down. You always give them something good to mirror, pull them up, and you will succeed like crazy. It's like Jedi mind powers. Good? All right. So paleo mammalian brain, we've got to make an emotional connection if we want that fourth most important yes. The mirror neurons, they're always mirroring you. And when you take that on, it's not just leaders, right? It's not just speakers, it's leaders. What if you, not because it's true, but just as an exercise, just because, what if you took on that your team's results were a reflection of you? And if their results are bad, it's something over here, and you need to give them something even better to mirror. Guess what? Instead of having a crappy team that just can't seem to figure it out, now all of a sudden you would have access to some way to be with them that could have them succeed. And that's absolutely my mantra when it comes to thinking, look, is it always easy? No. Would I love to blame them? Yes. But that just doesn't work. It just never, ever gets me what I really want. So now I'd like to give you a little bonus here in the middle. Is it okay if I give you a bonus? Okay, so here's the bonus that we didn't talk about, but that I want to sneak in here, because this completely changed my life. And it's directly related to public speaking. And because I'm a little bit narcissistic and I'm not that creative, I call it the Bates equation. So this is the Bates equation of public speaking. And, probably all of you are good at doing math in your head. I'll keep it simple. 1 times 20 times 3,000. That's 60,000 minutes that I am using in a 20-minute talk to 3,000 people. Yeah. So let's divide by 1,000 or by 60 to get hours. 1 20-minute talk to 3,000 people burns 1,000 hours of human life. And I don't want to prepare. Yeah, no, I don't like to prepare, right? I'm good at winging it. I won all kinds of contests winging it in Toastmasters, in high school. And I love to wing it. And guess what? Winging it takes far less effort. That's less prep time, isn't it? So I loved winging it. And I thought that's what I should do. And I made a good excuse, because if I practiced, then I would seem canned, right? I could never be that authentic and that present and in the moment if I practiced, right? Well, then I went to TED. And what I realized at TED, number one, I realized that I had a problem that probably a lot of you have or might have, which is that I was almost always the best speaker at the conference. I was always one of the top 3, right? Winging it, I was one of the top 3. And then I got to TED and I saw what a really good talk looks like. And I found out that those people prepare for more than a year, most of them. Then my friend who worked with Steve Jobs for almost his entire life, for his entire career, on those speeches, right? Steve Jobs, the natural communicator, after they created the speech, which took long enough, Steve would practice for an hour for every minute he was going to be on stage. An hour for every minute. So, and those TED Talks, that's more than a year of practicing. And so here's what I realized. There's this place where you practice so much that it seems like you practiced a lot. And that is not the goal, right? And then there's this place where like you just kind of stuck in that. I call it, in honor of Chris Anderson of TED, I call it the awkward valley. To get across the awkward valley, it just takes more practice. And all of a sudden you end up on the other side of the awkward valley and you've practiced so much it seems like you didn't practice. That's the goal. And what's so cool about that is once you reach that, you can be so much more present with the audience and you come across like you're an absolute expert in your talk, which you have total control over. And everybody just thinks you're an expert in everything. It's the craziest thing. So thinking about how much human life I consume when I show up here with 167 participants for almost an hour, that motivates me to bring my absolute best. And what I realized at TED is that even though I was one of the better speakers at the conference usually, the bar was super low. I was never going to get anywhere near as good as I could be by thinking that jumping over that bar with flying colors was doing me any favors. Does that make sense? So the question isn't how good are you in comparison to everybody else at that conference? The question is, how good are you in comparison to how good you could be? That's what's going to make the biggest difference in the world and allow you to really have an impact. So the other thing about the Bates equation that really struck me, so a couple things. One thing is it gives busy executives time to put this kind of thing in their calendar during the day, right? Because if you think about it, here's all the work you do. Here's the teeny moment of exposure that you get to top leadership to talk about the work, all that work you do. And that forms the impression that they have of you. All this work has probably on some level less impact than that moment of exposure. So do yourself a favor and put those practice times and those preparation times into your calendar in the middle of the day, like they're part of your job, because they are. Yeah. And here's the second thing that this taught me, took me a little longer to get this one, because I always thought I was the big deal, right? I mean, I'm the speaker, they fly me in, everybody's listening to me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what I realized that really spun my head around, and I offer it to you, is that I want to make a difference. It's the thing I want to do. And the only way that I get to make a difference is purely and totally a function of the generosity of your listening. I've done this when no one's listening. It doesn't have any impact. But because of the generosity of your impact, I have the opportunity today to potentially change the world through you. So think about how much it matters, how much human life you're consuming with that talk, and give it the preparation that it deserves. That was the big lesson for me. Now, I want to share with you, and I'm going to go through this kind of quick because I want to be on time, the 3 ways to connect with and inspire any audience, anywhere, anytime. And then I'm going to close up with some really fast words about fear of public speaking. Does that sound all right? Okay, so I want you to know, you take these 3 ways to connect with and inspire any audience, anywhere, anytime, and you build them into every speech you do, you will blow the doors off no matter how anything else goes. This is surefire stuff. So number 1 is from a guy that probably everyone knows, big hero of mine. His name is Les Brown. And he told me years ago, people don't connect with your successes. They connect with your messes. Your message is in your mess. So, I think most relevant to you, hearing my bio as I came in, I was like, oh boy, wow, who's that? Oh, me. Well, let me tell you something that didn't make it into my bio. The first time that I spoke at TED, I blew it so badly that I still get a little bit pink when I think about it. I made every single mistake in the book about how to blow a TED Talk. So if you go to Google, and don't do it now, this is easy to remember, do it when we're done. Google John Bates TED fail, and I will be the first result. And it's an article that I wrote for Inc. magazine about how badly I blew my first TED Talk because I made it about me. So, that story in Inc., it's really valuable because that's a real experience that I had that I painfully learned and was willing to share. So what Les is saying is, if you're willing to share someplace where you failed, you fell down, you felt stupid, you were embarrassed, and what you learned, very importantly, and what you learned, boy, people love that because that's real, valuable information. Does that make sense? It's also a fabulous leadership opportunity. Like the buffet table is a leadership opportunity, right? You could go first. Follow me, I'll go first, right? But anybody would be willing to go first at the buffet table. That's not a really valuable leadership opportunity. This is a valuable leadership opportunity because everybody's scared to go first. But boy, when you go first, they want to go second, third, fourth, fifth. We'll keep talking till they close the bar down, and no one will forget that conversation for the rest of their lives because it's so valuable, but everybody's too afraid to start it. So that's a fabulous leadership opportunity. And here's the term that I'm coining that I would love to leave you with to encapsulate that: insightful vulnerability. Bring insightful vulnerability. Okay. People don't connect with your successes. They connect with your messes. Your message is in your mess. Excuse me. Now, number 2, from a guy we all know and love, Craig Ballantyne, one of my friends and mentors, somebody I look up to, made a huge difference for me. He told me, John, this is number 2. And now here's the thing. If people don't connect with your successes, then how do you talk about your successes without alienating everyone, right? Well, here we go. Number 2 from Craig Ballantyne, 1999 world champion of speaking. He said, John, don't make yourself special. Make the process special. Don't be a guru. People can't relate to a guru. Make the process special. So in high school, I won every contest I ever entered in public speaking and debate except one. All 4 years, I took first, second, or third in everything I did, except one time, my freshman year. 2 years later, at a totally different debate meet, that same judge chased me down and apologized and said I should have won, and he was very sorry, and he was just glad he could tell me and apologize. Okay, now, here's the secret. That had almost nothing to do with me. Why I was so successful in high school is because at my public high school in Salt Lake City, Utah, just totally by sheer random luck, I had an excellent debate coach, and I did debate. I followed Joni Babelis into forensics. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew she was taking it, and she was the cutest girl in junior high, so I took forensics too. And then the guy was named D.L. Smith. He just passed recently. Thank heavens I got to see him before he went, and I got to thank him. It's going to make me cry. He was the coolest guy ever, and I did anything he said. And it wasn't because I had some commitment to being coachable. It's just because he was so cool. But purely by accident, I had a great coach and I was coachable. And that's how I won all those events. Not much to do with me. Everything to do with that process of find a great coach and be coachable. Look at Tiger Woods. He has had multiple coaches. None of them could beat him at golf, or they would have. But together, because he was coachable, they had him beat everybody else for what seemed like forever. That's called find a great coach and be coachable. Good? All right, you ready for number 3? Okay, anybody like Star Wars? Okay, good. We're going to fold Star Wars in here. Gets a little awkward in my tight space on the space station, but here we go. So number 3 comes from a woman who's very involved with TED. She does a lot of the beautiful PowerPoint and Prezi things for a lot of the TED speakers. Her name's Nancy Duarte. And she says, don't be the hero of your own talk. Make the audience the hero. Don't be Luke, be Yoda. So let me show you what it looks like, the difference between those two. Let me show you what the difference between those two things looks like. Okay, you ready? Okay, everybody, get your Star Wars geek on. Here we go. This is Luke Skywalker, the hero, showing off. Thank you very much. So not bad, you know, that's dangerous inside the space station, because if I cut something here, you know, we're in trouble. But that's Luke, right? That's being the hero of your talk. So that's not what we're supposed to do. So let's try the other way. Let's see what it would be like if I were Obi-Wan or Yoda. You ready for that? Okay, here we go. This is an elegant weapon from a more civilized time. And if you practice and you use the Force, you could change the destiny of the galaxy. Come on, take it. Reach out. Get your hand. You're very good. Barbara, it's yours. Samir, it's yours. Take it. Excellent. If you practice and you use the Force, you could change the destiny of the galaxy. Okay, now, which one was more fun? Especially if we were in person, because somebody would have gotten the other lightsaber and we would have had a duel, right? So, oh, I love it, bingo. So the second one was way more fun, right? Make the audience the hero. Now, imagine that you shared a place where you failed and what you learned, and it was really valuable. And then you shared a place or two where you succeeded, and you gave us the processes that had you succeed. And then you wrapped all that up and you gave it to us and told us to go be great. That would be a pretty good talk, yeah? And I've seen it work over and over and over. And it doesn't even matter if everybody else is using the same formula, because it's so real and it's so authentic and it's so valuable that human beings will sit and listen to that all day because they're actually getting something. Good? So let me give you the best advice I ever got, I think, in my life about anything, but for sure the best advice I ever got about public speaking and feeling nervous and all that. Yeah. Because I know that when I started doing Toastmasters years and years and years ago, even though I was already doing a lot of public speaking, I had a lot of fear about it, right? Like go every week and get judged and blah, 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 right? So this is some of the coaching that made the biggest difference for me in the world of my life. And it came from two very different sources. One is somebody that maybe we all know and love, Snoop Doggy Dogg. And I'm not even kidding, really Snoop Dogg, back in the day, Snoop Dogg. And the other one is one of the top leadership coaches and trainers anywhere in the world. And her name is Candace. So Snoop Dogg and Candace, they told me the same thing, but they both said it very differently, but it boils down to the same thing. So let's start with Snoop because he's such a poet. Snoop said, don't be nervous, be at their service. I have a terrible Snoop impersonation. Don't be nervous, be at their service. Now that is brilliant. Candace said the same thing, just slightly differently. She said, John, if you get up on stage and you have your attention on yourself, then you have your attention on a minor ball of petty concerns that's of no real interest to anyone but you. Ouch. Right? But it's true, but ouch, you know. She said, if, however, you get up on stage and you have your attention on the audience, and the difference that you're going to make for them and the difference they're going to make for the people in their lives because of it, well, now you've got something worth thinking about. Yeah. Don't be nervous, be at their service. Now, here's what happens. When you notice you're nervous, and you can do that, right? We've all done that. When you notice you're nervous, just connect the next step to it. The minute you notice you're nervous, say, oh, that's about me. Stop being so narcissistic, right? That's about me. Nervous is about me being worried about what they think of me. That's not why I'm here, right? So when you notice you're nervous, just connect it to, wait, that's about me. Let me get my attention on why I'm really here. The audience, the message, all of that. Yeah. So notice you're nervous, get your attention off yourself and on the audience. And now here's what happens. Remember, you're mirror neuron experts now. If I walk out and I'm nervous, thank you for, it's good to be here. Fellow ladies and gentlemen, right? Like, okay, you feel nervous, right? That's a pretty good impersonation. Yeah. So you feel nervous if I'm super nervous, right? It's what happened to that first guy that I saw at that TEDx event, right? So if I'm nervous, the audience cannot help but feel nervous. And when you're nervous, you're focused on yourself. So now I'm nervous and focused on myself, and the audience becomes nervous and focused on themselves. That's a terrible audience. But because you know now that they're always mirroring you, as you are walking out even, and you realize, oh, I'm nervous, flip it back over to, wait, let me be of service, get your attention on them. Now, a little bit of the nervous disappears, not much, you know, still sweating, still waggly voice, but we don't call it nervous now, we call it excited. You go from being nervous and focused on yourself to being excited and focused on them. It's a whole other world. It is a whole different world. So I look forward to being back with you tomorrow. I really, really appreciate your attention. Thank you for being on video. It was so much more fun to be with you than to be with your still shots. And I've got a couple offers that I've told Shama about. I won't take time here, but I think we can send them out to you. I'll just say next week I'm doing a free 5-day masterclass called Powerful Virtual Leader. You're totally invited and it's totally free. And then I'm giving everyone early access to a course. The course is already, it's fabulous. We're just figuring out the final details of the community and things, but I'm taking my course that's usually $3,000 to $15,000 and making it $300. And I want to reach 1,000 truly committed leaders, create a community around these principles, and change the world together with you. So, Shamala, I will pass it back to you. And I'll just say one more time, I get the value of the generosity of your listening, and I highly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your time and a great keynote. You followed the Toastmasters way, gave us 3 advices, which is so easy to remember. My gut says I should attend tomorrow's conference and be
Good.
part of your keynote speech and workshop. And now I know what to do. Let's have a round of applause. We all learned a lot and look forward to using what we learned from you to make our presentations even better. Our gratitude is on its way in the mail.